Tesla killer is what you'll hear from the media about any compact Chinese EV that floats anywhere near the price of a Tesla Model 3. They just love the clickbait that shoving Tesla into the title achieves. And I've done the same thing. YOLO. But here's the long and short of it. The Tesla Model 3 may be the benchmark for compact EVs due to its undeniable worldwide sales success. But it's not a zero-sum game, and BYD has been selling EVs here in China like they're going out of fashion. But this is maybe the most important BYD to date, so it deserves some time in the limelight. This is not the Tesla killer, it's got its own bloody name. This is the BYD Seal. Yeah, it's not the most inspiring name, but I'm Will, and this is China Driven. Now, admittedly, seals are quite cute, but it's not exactly the aquatic animal I would choose if I was designing a car. Thankfully, the BYD Seal looks nothing like an actual seal. Instead, what we get is objectively an athletic-looking EV compact. Now, there are nods to the ocean theme strewn throughout the interior and exterior of this car, and the name, well, it will probably be called something else overseas. How much the Seal will cost abroad, we don't know yet. But what we do know is here in China, you'll pay between $28.9 and $39.5 thousand US. This here today is the long-range version with a claimed 700 kilometers of range and a price tag of $35.8 thousand. Will it dominate this price bracket? I don't know yet. But I can probably say with quite a lot of confidence that it will beat its competitors on looks. Standing still, the BYD looks poised to explode away. On road, it looks to business. Its presence is sporty and agile. Wikipedia might describe it as a compact executive, but looking at it, sport compact might be more apt. The bonnet bulges, the short front overhangs with a nose relatively long, pushing the cabin back, topped in a black panoramic roof before descending into a pleasing fastback with a slight lift on the rear boot lid. The creases down the side being pinched by black trim at the bottom, the high belt line and the windows narrowed, a sense of movement throughout. This 4.8 meter long EV is pretty slippery too, with a drag coefficient of just 0.219. There's plenty of hints to the ocean theme on the exterior. Like here, there are some water droplets on the 3/4 rear window and some kind of like gill design trim up there on the front 3/4 panel. Down here in the middle at the bottom, you'll find some kind of scale-like design. And I know what you're thinking. Do seals have gills and scales? This one does. BYDs have always enjoyed some good lighting, and the BYD Seal is no different. The automatic LED headlights merge into the daylight running lights that also serve as the indicators, almost underlining the headlights, whilst in the lower fascia are treated as some rather trippy, almost optical illusion daylight running lights. The tail lights have a bar of light stretching between them, with little specks of light that appear to almost disappear into the light cluster. Supposedly, they're representative of water drops. What is not a nod to previous BYDs is this interior. It's probably one of my favourite BYD interiors up to now. However, I can't help to think the best version of this interior was probably the draft before it got finalised. For my personal taste, it's still a little busy in places, but each to their own. It is in some ways a nice change from the endless minimalistic styling dominating EV interiors. What I can't argue with is the materials used in here and the quality of those materials. They're definitely an improvement. You've got micro suede wrapping from door to door around the dash, as well as quilted leather on the door cards and the seats. I mean, look at these seats. They're a work of art, heated and cooled with 8-way adjustment and 4-way lumbar for the driver and 6-way adjustment for the passenger. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of no button interiors, although the massive buttons surround that beautiful crystal-like gear selector, I do think somewhat detracts a bit from what is a very pretty design piece. And again, I'm not a huge fan of piano black trim, fingerprints, but at least it has some design on it to help a little bit. but I am a big fan of these push-down cup holders. What a neat little trick to hold your venti coffees. The flow and design inside the BYD Seal is undoubtedly inspired by its ocean theme. Lots of swooping and dynamic lines giving a sense of waves lapping around the interior. Although it is a bit busy in places, overall it's a really solid interior design. In the back, the materials are equally as good as the front. Seating space is more than admirable for a compact with its 2,940mm wheelbase, basically meaning you're getting 45mm more in the back here than a Tesla Model 3. And these seats are kind of sculpted and they are kind of in a relaxed position. There's a couple of air vents, a couple of cup holders, a couple of USBs, and a 220 volt socket, which is able to power up to 2.2 kilowatts. Want to power more from the car as well? Under the boot floor, you'll find a multi-socket extension that is made to fit straight into the charging port to allow you to power things outside the car. In terms of storage up front, you get a decent sized frunk under what looks like an engine cover. I mean, space-wise, I reckon you get 2 watermelons in there. Big ones like. Now back here you get 320 litres of trunk space. Now the rear seats do fold down, but we don't have a figure for the literage. Now obviously this is a compact EV trunk, so you're not going to get 2 large suitcases side by side, so you'll have to reduce what you wear on holiday. Talking about wearing, the BYD Seal is wearing some proper sporty tyres. Unlike its cheaper, smaller brother, the BYD Dolphin, that makes do with budget-friendly Chaoyang tyres, this is shod in Continental Sport Contact 7 tyres in a 235/45 profile, hugging these crazy 19-inch fan blade alloys, and they don't look overly small, even in a world littered with 21-inch rims on everything. And behind those rims, you'll find 4 piston calipers. I'm telling you, there's something different about this BYD compared to BYDs that have come before it. And those 4 piston calipers apparently do their job, stopping from 100 kilometers an hour in 35.9 meters. And the suspension is surprisingly ambitious for BYD. The double wishbone up front really helps in terms of handling, and the multi-link in the back helps for that comfort. This suspension setup really suggests that this car was built with some handling in mind. So this thing is completely different to previous BYD offerings in terms of driving dynamics. Now, I'm not a race car driver, but the turning in this thing is night and day. We're only in the long range version today, but it goads you. The inputs like steering and pedals are much lighter than, say, a Tesla Model 3. The brake regen also isn't as highly sprung as in a Tesla. Some might consider that a downside, but it probably fits Chinese consumers' needs better. Now, the steering may be light, but it's still direct, and even with a single rear motor spinning out 230 kilowatts of power and 360 newton meters of torque, it feels a little bit faster than its 5.9 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour. It kind of eggs you on a bit. But let's calm down and address the real importance of the BYD Seal. Now, it's running on BYD's E-Platform 3.0 with 800 volt architecture. But the big news, CTB, cells to body. Basically, the battery cells are integrated into the chassis, meaning it's structural, similar to Tesla's structural battery. However, BYD Blade LFP cells are hexagonal in shape and allows them to squeeze more cells into the same amount of space compared to regular cylindrical cells. In theory, CTB allows a lower weight and more rigidity. The all-wheel drive performance in this long-range version come with an 82.5 kilowatt-hour LFP Blade battery system, while the lower 2 trims make do with a smaller 61.4 kilowatt-hour pack. Tech-wise, the interior of the Seal has got all the essentials. 5G connection, built-in dash cam, 2-zone AC with PM 2.5 filter, Bluetooth mics as standard. Now, quite a few Chinese EVs are now available with Bluetooth mics for in-car KTV. But how many of them have dedicated microphone storage? This is the only one that I know of. And you can shriek at your fellow passengers through the 775 watt Dynaudio 12 speaker surround system. I compare you to a kiss from a rose on the grave. Ooh. In here, you'll also find a HUD, a 10.25-inch instrument panel, as well as this 15.6-inch central touchscreen that can do this. Ooh. Ah. There are two things I'm a big fan of in the BYD's infotainment. Firstly, you can set the cost of your home charging and the car will tell you how much your journey cost you. Even better, when you have an active sat-nav route, you can exit the screen, you get this cool floating sat-nav widget to put anywhere you want. I'll admit it's a little bit less useful when you have the info on the heads-up display, but on other BYDs, it's a great little function. We didn't really get a chance to test out the D-Pilot too much, but it's a level 2 ADAS system comparable to its competitors. Although pushing the envelope on ADAS features hasn't been a priority for BYD up until this point, with advanced features like NOA missing, I'm confident they're busy developing their ADAS suite more. The current level 2 D-Pilot still works and is handy on a long drive. BYD EVs up until this point offer great value for decent range with LFP blade battery tech that BYD is famous for abusing it in an effort to show its safety. But the BYD Seal has made big steps in nearly every aspect. A suspension setup to encourage a sporty drive, better interior materials, and a handsome, charismatic sport compact. It looks absolutely boss on road, and it feels properly good behind the wheel. Is this a turning point for BYD, where their cars not only represent good value for range, but actually decent driving as well? The only thing left for BYD cars is a larger improvement on their D-Pilot ADAS suite, but I have it on good authority, they're working on it. Now, I'm under no doubt that this is going to be a sales smash hit here in China. With current wait times, it kind of already is, and wherever and whenever this goes abroad, it's going to be damn popular. This is probably the best BYD to date, the BYD Seal, and this is China driven.